So this is a 1995 BMW K100. These are really cool bikes. Now, if you look one of these up from the factory, they're a fairing bike. They've got big fairings on them. They're not the prettiest thing in the world, but they do run really good. They're a lot of fun to ride. I found this one down in Florida. Older gentleman had it. The guy was almost 70 years old, and this was what he was doing. So that's my kind of guy right there. He definitely was on the right track with what he was doing. I think just fabrication capabilities might not have quite been there, but he stripped everything down. He had the tank and the fender painted in, I think that's a Ford Raptor orange. That's a tri-coat. It looks really good, so I think I'm probably going to leave it alone other than just cutting and buffing it. We'll slick it out a little bit. Now, these are neat because they're the single-sided swing arm, which BMW kind of patented that drive shaft on them, where it's a shaft driven, there's no chain. So these also have the ABS brakes, which I believe started in 95. Now, they call these the flying brick. Any guesses why? Right there. Looks like a big brick laying in there. So this is an inline four-cylinder, basically flipped on its side. So when they did these K-bikes, the BMWs, which are super rad, I love all the BMW bikes, which like the Airhead we have over there, which is super cool. We're going to build that one next. But this was kind of to combat that, you know, that Japanese CB like we've been building over at the shop. So inline four-cylinder sounds really good. I've obviously cut the exhaust off of it because I am a believer in people can hear you coming. So we're going to build an exhaust, but for right now we've got it good and loud. Now when we normally do these cafe bikes or cafe style bikes or scramblers, we try to delete kind of everything within the triangle. You want to see through it. That's what looks really cool, at least to me anyway. Now on this one being a more modern bike, and I'm going to ride this one. I don't plan to do like a crazy full build. I don't want to start cutting the frame up because we know, like I said in the last one, we know what's going to happen. So I'm going to do something to just kind of cover this triangle up. The only thing I don't like about these bikes, the way they designed the front of the tank right here and the way the tank pitches up, but then the frame pitches back down, I don't really like that. It would be cool to cut the frame, kind of get all this going in one direction. We're not going to do it. We're not going to do it. One other cool thing about this one, when I went to pick this one up, one thing that really stood out to me was the mileage. This thing only has a little over 7,000 miles on it. So when I talked to the gentleman that had it, he bought it from a collector in Georgia. Obviously, bike had hardly been ridden, and it was still a full fairing bike, had never been modified till he had gotten it. And it's pretty much like riding a brand new bike. It is really tight. It sounds good. It's good acceleration, stops great. He put a new coil spring on the back. All that looks good. Brakes, everything. This guy went through it all. And I mean, this thing is spot on. And I like that because it means I don't have to go back through it and do it. So here's what we're going to do today. We've already kind of got that styling going. Like we said, we got a cool seat on it already. He's got the LED blinkers. We're probably going to end up swapping out the tail light to something a little more sleek. That's not so big. That's the factory tail light off these bikes. So let me show you what I've got. I'll show you how we're going to do this. On this triangle, you see right here, I just want to cover it up because we don't want to get rid of it. So I've already built a panel. Now this is super easy to do. I figured if you've got any bike with a triangle, you can kind of see how to do it. So that looks really cool right there. So all I did when I started off, I grabbed an old piece of cardboard, cut it up, made me a template, traced it out, and here's what we ended up with. All right, so here's the cardboard piece I was talking about. Other than the corners where I rounded them off, you can see started with that template, transferred it over to metal. So since we like the way this one fits, we're going to use this to transfer over to our new piece of flat sheet metal. All right, so I don't have a stomp shear at the house, but I do have this Beverly shear, which is freaking awesome. Makes some really good accurate cuts with that. So I'm going to stay right on the outside of my Sharpie line I just made since we're not using a scribe. And this is Woodward Fab's shear. And watch this, like butter. Get some of these corners going. Of course, they're my crappy shears that I keep at home. We won't tell anybody that. All right, so now we're ready to put a little bit of design in the metal, and this is where it really sets it apart. So, got a few Woodward Fab tools right here. We've got a shrinker stretcher, bead roller, and a brake. So you can get a lot of stuff done with these 3 tools, and they're, you know, it's very doable to have these in your home shop. So with the brake, obviously, we can bend metal, we can get a 90, but with the shrinker stretcher, we can come through here, we can pound on it, and we can start making these curves in our metal. That way, if you were gonna do like rust repair on a pinch weld for a windshield or something, that's easily makeable because we've got a channel. And with the bead roller, we can do all kinds of stuff. So roll beads in it with just our standard dies. And then what we're gonna do is basically we want to indent this whole center section. So we've got a step die. So you can see these are offset. What that's gonna do is kind of compress that metal and sink it down. Now the way I like to do this, on the other one that I made, we did 1 inch. So I'm going to set my caliper to 1 inch on here. Lock that down. We're going to use this as a scribe. So we're going to go along our outer edge and we're going to make our mark for what we want to roll. See, we've scribed a perfect line all the way down. We can follow that along. Now, the only other thing that we need to do is make our edges. So typically, I'll get something like a roll of tape, roll-lock wheel, grinding disc, cut-off wheel, something like that. say when you start doing this is don't start right in your corner. That's just a little trick that I kind of do. I start out in a flat spot because if you start in a corner, you always have to meet that corner again as you're coming back around, and it's really hard to do, and you'll end up making some distortion in your metal. So if you start kind of off into the center point, it's easier to meet that when you're coming back to it. Just want to get some tension down on it. Now this Woodward fab roller could be used two different ways. This one actually comes as a manual where you would have a handle over here. You could get somebody to roll it for you while you work it, but they also have the motor option, which we put on so we're able to work it with a foot pedal, just like our big one at the shop. Makes life super easy, and if I could recommend having one metal tool in the shop, would be this guy right here. So, all right. Now, we just got to follow the line. Let's go back to kindergarten for a second. There we go. It's pretty much just like that. We got a little, well, we're on the other side, aren't we? Hang on. Let's go to the other side. There we have it. So this is a little heavier gauge metal. I might roll it one more time just to give this a little more depth. And that's how we do it. So what we're going to do to mount this, which is super easy, and I don't know if we're going to get to showing that or not, is this bike, I believe when the guy did this bike, it looks to me, because it's got a little chip spot right here, I think he just cleaned it up and probably rattle canned this frame, which is fine. It looks good. But it's not powder coat, so I'm not too worried about if we grind a little bit off. So I think what I'm going to do is make a couple of triangles that are going to fit within here. We'll drill through these, we'll tack those in, and then we'll maybe use like 1/4 inch or 1/8 inch, and we'll thread it, and we'll just use little bolts, little nice chrome finishing bolts that we can just bolt this in. We can take it off, access our battery, anything in there we need. So that's probably how we'll do that, but looks cool. I like it.